The announcements made by train conductors all sound similar, don't they? It's like they all have this slightly relaxed way of speaking, almost as if they're encouraging sleep. Do they get trained to talk like that? I wonder. I saw on TV that the content of in-train announcements isn't based on a set template. But then again, I've never heard a conductor add their own flair to the announcements. It's always the same lines, even if the conductor changes. I guess they might be following the style passed down by their senior conductors. The highway bus company, Willer Express. I made a last-minute reservation, so the ticket was pretty cheap at that 700 yen. The bus left Nagoya at 2:30 p.m. and arrived in Osaka at 5:35 p.m. There's a power outlet for each seat. Speaking of which, outlets look different overseas, don't they? The power outlets on night buses are either of this standard type or USB. The seats are reclining, and each passenger gets a blanket. This was my first time on a Willer bus, and it was great, especially the seat dividers. They have just the right amount of cushion and provide a sense of security when you lean to the sides. Even though it's a 4-row bus and there's someone sitting right next to you, the dividers help keep that space from feeling cramped.
This bus is bound for Osaka. This bus will stop at Willer Bus Terminal Osaka Ameda, Nambo Okat. We would like to inform you of the
In case of an emergency, we're instructed to follow the crew's directions.
Please use cough etiquettes such as using a mask or covering your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing. Fasten your seatbelt while bus.
There's also information on what actions we should take if the situation becomes so critical that the crew can't communicate with us.
Including electronic cigarettes. Refrain from speaking on the cell phone and set up in manner mode. Emergency exit is at the end of the bus. Equipped with a safety device. It issues an alarm, but there is no
The location of the fire extinguisher and emergency exits, along with the emergency contact numbers, is provided as well. There were several rules posted, but what stood out were the reminders for no smoking and being mindful of phone noise and calls. They also mentioned to be careful about light from electronic devices, as it's completely dark when traveling overnight. Mask wearing is optional. They're fine with eating, but they ask that passengers eat quietly. Come to think of it, long-distance bus drivers also speak in a similar drowsiness-inducing way. How about an ASMR series of in-bus announcements? I wonder if they purposely talk in a way that encourages sleep so they don't disturb passengers who are resting. You can clearly hear what they're saying, but it still makes you feel sleepy. It's kind of fascinating.
また急な体調不良、急なお手洗いございましたらご遠慮なく乗務員までお申しください。最寄りのサービスエリア、パーキングエリアに停車いたします。
I made a Japanese-style pizza I found through a search, though the crust is more like bread. Japanese style usually implies something with a Japanese touch, but honestly, I don't really know what makes something Japanese style. There are Japanese-style hamburgers and Japanese-style pasta too. You translated it as hamburger, ChatGPT, but this is what I actually had in mind. When I think of a Japanese-style hamburger, I imagine one with grated daikon radish and ponzu sauce on top. And for pasta, Maybe a soy sauce flavored pasta with mushrooms. I don't really know why daikon and mushrooms come to mind with Japanese style, though. Maybe it's not the ingredients, but the seasoning that gives it a Japanese vibe. Even though I've never tried it, I'd probably think, oh yeah, this miso-flavored pasta feels Japanese. In your country, do you have foreign dishes adapted with your local flavors? Speaking of which, there was a trend about a year or two ago called duckling driving. It's a term used to describe vehicles that illegally pass through ETC lanes without paying. By tailgating the car in front as they exit, they can trick the sensor into thinking it's just one car. I saw an example of this on TV, and the cars were really close, maybe just 10 centimeters apart. Maybe I'm exaggerating. They were that close, so there's no way it happens by accident. Don't worry, in case you're someone who might drive in Japan someday. But what I actually want to talk about is the name duckling driving. It's named after the way ducklings follow closely behind their mother. Isn't that such a funny name? I looked into whether it has an official name, but it seems it doesn't. I was curious about what the formal term would be. I wonder who came up with it. I can't imagine it's the people actually doing it, so maybe the term came from the police. Do they use duckling driving in conversation when discussing cases in the station? The service area has a ninja theme. I was curious why until I realized we're in Mie Prefecture, known for Iga ninjas. The Iga ninja clan originates from the Iga region in Mie. We took a break at a service area, and everyone had gathered back on the bus by around 4. Everyone being so punctual, maybe that's kind of amazing, right? From Nagoya, it took 3 hours to get to Osaka. After getting off the bus, I walked from the bus stop to Osaka Station, which was about a 10-minute walk away. If you follow groups with large bags, like other people who probably took the bus to Osaka, you'll find your way easily. My next destination was Universal Studios Japan. I usually take an overnight bus directly from Nagoya Station to Universal Studios, so this was my first time traveling from Osaka Station. I figured I'd take a line called the Osaka Loop Line, which is operated by JR, so I started looking for the JR logo. There seem to be various companies that operate trains, but I only know about JR and private railways. There's a lot of emphasis on the big two relationship, but within the private railways, there are many different companies operating their own lines. As long as you remember that JR and private railways are run by different companies and thus have different ticket gates, you should be okay. Once I went through the JR gate, it was easy to spot the Osaka Loop Line sign in big red letters. I got off at Nishikujo Station and transferred to the JR Umasaki line. Since it was another JR line, I didn't have to exit the gate to transfer. In fact, the Umasaki line platform was just beyond where I got off. So convenient. The pathway was really narrow, so there were guides on the ground directing people to line up in 4 rows. Even though different lines run through the same station, there was a sign on the platform indicating Universal City, so it was easy to find. After about 2 stops, I arrived at Universal Studios.